Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. I hope you can hear me. We've had a few minor interruption, but we are back online, live and in living color. You just saw a report out of the Voice of America with our guest today and the African Union ambassador, the former African Union ambassador to the United States, Dr. Arikana Chihombori-Quao. She is our guest this morning, and we are so honored to get her. We're trying to connect with her right now, and just bear with us as we get into this whole thing. Technology is something, and we are just trying to get everything together and be a part of the discussion with the ambassador. And just if you all would just hold on one moment, I'll need to take this call. Yes, ma'am. Yes, because we're already on the air, and we needed to play that. So come on back in so we can go. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. All right. That's the ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, on there. So I love this stuff. It's just organic as can be, and we are ready to roll. But while we're waiting for her to check in, let me just go on to the headlines. First of all, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Thursday, July 9th, 2020. Thursday, July 9th. I got to tell you all, this COVID-19 is something, isn't it? Man, I'm getting cabin fever, feeling kind of like I'm, I don't know what to do next. And thank you so much. I hope you're doing okay. How's your family, everybody? You guys doing okay? Today, we want to come with another great edition of this platform, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Shout out to everybody. I see you, Molly Bell. Thank you so much for coming in. Let's go to the headlines for today. The Supreme Court issued a mixed verdict Thursday on demands for President Donald Trump's financial records that will keep his tax returns, banking, and other documents out of the public eye for the time being. By 7-2 votes, the justices upheld the Manhattan District Attorney's demand for Trump's tax returns, but kept a hold on Trump's financial records that Congress has been seeking for more than a year. You know, our Auntie Maxine is on that case right there. There's some pressure on Facebook to clean up its platform. Last week, a slew of brands got on board the Stop Hate for Profit campaign to boycott advertising on Facebook at the urging of civil rights groups, among others. Well, representatives from some of those groups met with Facebook earlier this week. And as Facebook characterized the meeting, we know will be judged by our actions, not our words. And we are grateful to these groups and many others for their continued engagement. As an advocacy group co-CEO Jessica J. Gonzalez, the advocacy group is called Free Press. She characterized it that says Facebook executives use the same old talking points that made the meeting feel like nothing more than a PR exercise. I really hope they get that together, you guys, because Facebook is really something in the back office. Work began Thursday morning on the massive Black Lives Matter mural in front of Trump Tower. A stretch of Fifth Avenue between East 56th Street and 57th Streets in New York City was closed to traffic as City Department of Transportation workers began measuring and stenciling the giant yellow letters onto the pavement with spray paint and tape just after 8 a.m. New York City wanted to start painting Black Lives Matter mural outside Trump Tower. The mayor, Bill de Blasio, sanctions the mural, and it will be painted by local artists beginning at 11 a.m. their time, and the mayor is expected to show up later. He said he's extremely proud to be here. Black Lives Matter. That's what's up. 7 out of 10 African-American youth between 12 and 17 who smoke, they use menthol cigarettes. You know, menthol cigarettes are all in the hood, right? That's according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And a higher percentage of Black adults who smoke began using menthol cigarettes, 93%. That's more than 2 times higher than the number of white adults who did the same. The two top-selling mentholated cigarette brands in the United States are Newport and Cools. Anti-tobacco advocates say these numbers are alarming. So, two of the nation's top organizations committed to decreasing the use of tobacco in the United States are taking legal action to end the consumption of menthol by African Americans, calling them chemically unhealthy and deadly. They want it eliminated from all tobacco products. Yes, they want to outlaw menthol. Last Friday, during Governor Gavin Newsom's daily COVID-19 update, he announced that the state will begin smart or targeted testing for the disease. He announced a plan after health officials released data last week showing a sharp upturn in the numbers of infected people. The next iteration of our testing, we want to see the volume. It is not just the volume. We want to see the specificity of testing and the sophistication of the type and target of the testing. The governor said the new testing strategy will focus on communities that have been underserved, undertested, under-resourced, but he did not give details about the places the state plans to prioritize. Well, face-to-faceafrica.com reports that educator and community leader Kojo Asamoah Caesar has made history. He's the first Ghanaian American to run for the U.S. Congress. He won the nomination of the Democratic Party in the primaries for Oklahoma's first congressional district, Tulsa. He also becomes the first ever first-generation American, first ever Black person to win nomination, first ever resident of North Tulsa, and the youngest ever Democratic nominee to run for U.S. Congress. According to a report by the New York Times, Asamoah Caesar polled 34,380 votes, representing a total vote cast of 63.6% on June 30th, and he will challenge Republican Party incumbent Kevin Hearn in the general election. Wow, that's fantastic. This is an important time, y'all, right? We see that African consciousness is at the top of mind. We're able to track our DNA to locate where we are from. We're able to connect with the continent in more ways than ever before. Thus, we're paying more attention to the happenings on the continent. You know, here at Coffee Conversations with Greg J and BeachCityRadio.com, we're dedicated to building bridges of music, arts, and culture with Africa. These current times places Africa on our mind more and more. African Americans are considering the possibility of moving to the continent. More and more African Americans are trying to do business with nations on the continent and other business people on the continent. More and more African nations are expressing solidarity and creating policies and programs that will further overturn the vestiges of colonialism and white supremacy. So today we're in for a treat. I am so glad. I can't tell you how glad I am to welcome one who has been at the leading edge of creating policy. She is the former African Union Ambassador to the United States. Please welcome Her Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Arikana Chihombori-Quao. I got to tell you something, y'all. I really, you guys heard her right there. Let me bring her in. Her Excellency, how are you today?
Doing very well. I am so excited to be here. And I'm looking forward to a great coffee conversation. Thank you for having me.
Yes, man. It is such, I cannot tell you. I feel like doing my happy dance right now that you are here.
Me and you both.
Yes. It's interesting. We played an interview that you did with Voice of America. And, there were some comments that said, they didn't, our audience is 99.9%. Well, I don't know the percentage. Okay. 99% African-American. We are unapologetically Black here at this coffee conversation. And there were some people who did not know there was an African Union. So let's start there before we get into the meat of the matter. Talk about the African Union and what that august body is all about.
August body was originally named Organization of African Unity, which was created in 1963, soon after the majority of the African countries had attained their independence from the former colonizers, who were Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Belgium. And they came to the quick realization that these little bitty countries that we were were designed to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. That, like the United States of America, the only way to survive is for Africa to come together and speak with one voice. So when they met in 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the idea was to create what we would have considered the United States of Africa. They failed to reach a consensus because when they went to Addis Ababa, they were divided. NATO was at full force. This unity is something they did not want to see happen. So the two groups that went to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia were the Casablanca group, who were 7 countries who said Africa for the Africans, African Union now. Those were Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. And so they lost. The rest of the countries who attended the summit were the nationalists who said, let's go slow. So since 1963, Africa has been on a quest to create an Africa that spoke with one voice, particularly when it came to issues of trade with other nations around the globe. As little bitty little countries, Malawi cannot negotiate with the United States of America, but that is the situation today. Togo cannot negotiate with China, but that is the situation today. So realizing that as individual African countries with the same sovereignty on the world stage as the big boys, there is no way that Africa can win. So the African Union, OAU, was renamed AU in 2002. But this has been over 56 years of the African nations trying to come together so we can speak with one voice. That is still work in progress. African Union is an organization that is made up of all the African countries in Africa today, which is 55. The Sahrawi does not have the voting rights, but that's another different conversation. In a nutshell, we have 55 African countries who meet twice a year, African leaders, to discuss issues pertaining to the continent. Right now, the biggest decision was the African Continental Free Trade Area, which was approved back in April of 2018. Implementation is going to begin in January of 2021. Africa United is going to enter the world market as one gigantic superpower, one customs union. This is something that the organization, the members who created Organization of African Unity, have been trying to do since 1963. So yes, OAU is a big deal. We are not there yet. African Union is a big deal. We are not there yet, but the conversations are continuing, and we do have that common home that we call the African Union, where we'll continue to push the African common agenda, the agenda that represents not only Africans on the continent, but Black people around the globe, because our issues are the same. That is, in a nutshell, the African Union.
That's the African Union, y'all. Okay, that's you got it. Got it. All right, let's move forward there. Ambassador, you really when you became the ambassador to the United States for the African Union, I mean, you just really took the bull by the horns and really began to elevate the presence and the brand of the African Union. You have some very strong ideas about what we need to do to what African unity really means. And you've actually articulated some of that in what you were just explaining the African Union to be. But for those of us here in America, we don't get all of the news all the time about what's happening on the continent. And so that's why, programs like this, we just try to promote Africa so that we can become aware. Now, okay, big African trade sector, big old continent. How can American business people get involved?
Well, actually, the biggest problem that we have had is the children of Africa around the globe. And let me make sure that I remind everybody so everybody understands how Black people ended up here. Black people were brought here through slavery into Europe, into the Caribbean, South America, into the Americas. What we have failed to do, which is what other races have managed to do, is unity. Especially in this United States of America, which is a melting pot. When you ask for the voices of the Chinese, the Indian, the Irish Americans, German Americans, Italian Americans, their voices are loud and clear. They are united. They continue to be connected with their countries of origin. We have failed to unite. It is precisely because of our failure to unite that we have not been able to engage Africa as a single entity. When I left the embassy, the mission, I have now since registered an entity which is called the African Diaspora Development Institute. This is with the realization that we must have one entity that can represent all people of African descent, where we can say collectively, we are ready to take that space that has our name, because without the African diaspora, which are all people of African descent living outside Africa, the development of Africa, the development of a sustainable, the building of a sustainable Africa is not going to happen. It is going to happen in a very disjointed way, the same way it has occurred in the past several centuries, where it is being built initially by the Europeans, who only built roads that took the mineral resources out of the country, railways that took the mineral resources out of the country. They were not development that was designed to improve the lives of the African. Now we have the latecomers who are the Chinese. They're all extracting and taking whatever they can take out of Africa. Until the children of Africa take their rightful place and begin to build the Africa that we want, sustainable development of a meaningful Africa is not going to take place. With that in mind, we have the African Continental Free Trade Area that's going to be launched in January of next year. The reality is the Chinese have an agenda for how they like to see Africa developed to their benefit. The Europeans have a 100-year agenda of how they would like to see Africa developed to their benefit. None of their agendas take into consideration the desires of Black people on the continent as well as Black people outside the continent, who are the true inheritors of what Africa has. The beautiful thing is, for us, we are fortunate to be inheritors of one of the most amazing continents on earth. In spite of the centuries of exploitation, it is now documented that roughly the exploiters have taken maybe 10% of Africa's wealth. Every day we are discovering more and more natural resources in Africa. It is an amazing continent. The time is now for us Black people to unite, to take our financial know-how, our financial manpower, our intellectual know-how, and go to Africa and take our place that has our name. It will be a very sad day when a Black man can be taken to Africa led by a Chinaman. It will be a very sad day when a Black man can be led to go and participate in the continental development agenda by an Indian, by a Mexican, by a Russian, by a Japanese, by a European. Because the truth of the matter is, you don't see a Black man leading a Chinaman to China. You don't see a Black man leading a Russian man to Russia. You don't see a Black man leading a European to Europe. We therefore must not, should not, and I hope we will not allow others to lead us to a place that we call our home. We have a responsibility to unite. We have a responsibility to take our place. We have the know-how. We have the finances that when we are united, there is a seat that has our name. The African continental development agenda must be driven by the children of Africa. That we must be very clear about, that we must commit to doing. It will be a shame, it will be a disgrace, it will be a serious disservice to our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come if we miss this tremendous opportunity to develop generational wealth in our Africa. Opportunities that are getting ready to come up in Africa. These are opportunities that you Black men have never gotten anywhere on earth. Now, it is our time to take that place and build the generational wealth. It is our time to go home and take and claim our inheritance. If we miss this boat by failing to unite, we have no one to blame but ourselves.
All right. So, let me ask you two questions. Well, let me ask you one question at a time. So, all right, there are still African Americans who are, quite honestly blinded by the propaganda that they've seen on what Africa is, and then there's those who there's a chasm between African Americans and Africans here in the United States. And what we found in our quest to bridge that, build that bridge and to dispel myths about Africa. We've held so many different social events where we bring our African brothers and sisters together with our African Americans over here with that one goal in mind, is, hey, we need to come together and work together and come to know one another. We are more the same than different. What would you say to those who are listening to this, but they're still resistant because they're like, I don't want to be no part of no Africa. That's how they say it, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, actually, we have to understand that we are part of somebody else's agenda. We've been as part of somebody else's agenda for centuries. The brainwashing that we were systematically subjected to, we must understand that to a great extent, the majority of us are still suffering from that brainwashing. We need to understand that we were trained, and I had to put it in such a simplistic way, but it's almost like how you train your dog. The dog automatically knows that if I do this, if I wag my tail, this is what happens. Or if I do this, I should wag my tail. Whether it's good for the dog or not, the dog is programmed to wag its tail. Well, we're pretty much the same way. Our inability to come together it's really deep. It's coming from a very deep place. We know that some of the things we do are detrimental to our race, are detrimental to us as a community, are detrimental to us as individuals. Let me give you an example. A Black man could have a shop in a Black community for decades. And the minute a Chinaman comes to open a shop in the same neighborhood, the minute a white man comes to open a shop in the same neighborhood, we are going to walk right past the Black man and begin to patronize the Chinese and the white man. The reverse is not going to happen in their neighborhoods. You will not make it in a Chinese neighborhood as a Black person. You will not make it in an Italian neighborhood as a Black person. But we are the only ones who are dumb enough to give out our money, to take the money out of our communities, the money that is needed to build the community centers, to build the children's programs after school. We are quite comfortable letting that money out of our communities simply because we don't want to unite. We have been programmed to not respect anything that has to do with us. We know it's wrong, but somehow we can't seem to be able to get ourselves to take the next step to do the right thing, to just believe in each other, believe in ourselves, and also to say, while I may not be doing this for myself, I owe it to my children. I owe it to my grandchildren. That kind of thinking was disrupted from us. We were only programmed to just think about me and today and tomorrow, and that's it. How do we get over that? It starts with knowledge and understanding your history and understanding how did we get here. And that starts with understanding our history in a very deep way. I have many African American friends of mine. Over the years, we've gone from some who say, well, you continental Africans, your suffering was not like ours. We suffered more than you did. Well, I have news for you. They were lynching Black people in Africa as well. I have a book that was just launched yesterday, Africa 101. You can feel free to go to Amazon. The ebook is available. I have one page, I believe it's page 41, where I am showing a lynching of Black people in Matabeleland, Zimbabwe. Lord Baden-Powell, the founder of the Boy Scouts, that was his favorite photograph. It was found in archives, in his archives in Zimbabwe, where it was in his scrapbook. And he nicknamed that particular tree Christmas tree, because Black people hanging from that tree looked like ornaments on a Christmas tree. I superimposed that photograph with a photograph of a lynching in Georgia, United States. I did that precisely to let others who think the suffering of the African Americans was worse than the suffering of the Africans on the continent to say, here it is, in your face, this is what was happening. The whole chapter is talking about the carnage, the havoc that was brought to Africa by the colonizers, in your face. So what we need first and foremost, we must understand that we are a wounded people as Black people, no matter where you see us, and we need healing. And that healing begins with us understanding our history and understanding that what unites us is our Blackness, is our Africanness. If I take you, my brother, right now and put you on the street with my husband, they're gonna see two Black men. They're not going to see one born in Los Angeles and an African American. They're not going to see a continental African. I can take you and my husband and put you on the streets of Accra, Ghana. They're going to see two Africans.
Yes.
So let's understand that. What unites us is our blackness, that we are in this Titanic that is currently sinking, that unless we come together and understand the issues and prioritize what is first, what is needed first, what is needed is unity. So we can come together and patch the holes on this sinking Titanic and keeping it from sinking. Because changing seats while you're sitting in the Titanic, it doesn't matter. We are all going down. And that is the thinking that we need to understand that unity, we've been lied to. We must rewrite our textbooks. The hunted must begin to write their own stories. What you have been told about Africa are nothing but lies for the most part. The carnage that you see taking place in Africa, from the coups, 65 of them, none, and I say N-O-N-E, zero, zilch, were of African origin. The coups were started because either the African leader tried to go against the colonizers, or the African leader, the country had discovered mineral resources and they wanted them. So you look at what has happened to Africa, they turn around, they bring all this carnage to Africa. I am not saying as African leaders, we don't have our own issues to handle. Yes, we do. And I don't know what country that doesn't have issues. But those are family issues. They need to be handled as family issues. It's the outside interference that compounds Africa's issues. They intentionally set out to create all these coups, the areas of instability, so they can continue to exploit Africa. But they're the same people that know the games that they're playing, and they begin to paint Africa as a diseased and dying continent. And particularly to Black people, they tell Black people, do not go to Africa, because they do know that when Black people outside Africa unite with Black people on the continent, their game is over. Well, I have news for them, because that day is coming. It has taken us 400 years to finally wake up and realize that our strength is in our unity. That day is gonna come, but it starts by us understanding the truth and knowing that the lies that Martin Luther King spoke about, those lies continue to this very day. How stupid and how long are we going to continue to be stupid? The lies, let's understand them for what they are, and let's be the generation that's going to cut this curse. That we are going to teach our children the truth and nothing but the truth. We are going to let our children know that being Black doesn't mean you represent the devil, that the devil is not Black. There's no such thing as a Black devil, but rather there's a devil that is based on deeds. That there's no such thing as a white angel that is desirable. Nobody has ever seen a white angel. Being an angel is based on deeds. Let's start with how they systematically lied to us, how they systematically brainwashed us. Let's begin to heal thyself from that point of view and understand that as Black people, we're just as good, just as beautiful, just as intelligent as anybody else. The only difference is we are inheritors of the most amazing continent on earth, and we are the origin of humanity. And to Black women, I say, without you, you should tell every man in your life to get up and get on their knees and worship you, because without you, there would not be any human race as we know it. So you have every reason to stand on top of the tallest mountain and tell the world and proclaim to the world who you are. And like I often say, the proud, the beautiful, intelligent, sophisticated, highly adaptable, and totally indestructible African. And that's you and I. Let's understand that. Let's be proud of who we are. And that is the beginning of the healing. And let's come together and go get our Africa, because that continent belongs to us.
Yes, you know, Ambassador, the book is Africa 101, The Wake-Up Call. And I know that my assignment was to read chapter 5 so we could prepare for this, but I could not get over the foreword and the preface and chapter 1. It just had me glued like right away. So I didn't get to chapter 5 yet, but my goodness, you guys, this book, it is available on Amazon. We'll put up the link there. I wasn't sure if it was ready quite yet, but this is hot off the presses, you guys, and you guys can get that book there and gain some insight and knowledge of what these next steps would be. Now, Ambassador, how do you see what's happening in in America right now? How from, I know when I talk to my brothers and sisters over on the continent, the one thing that remains constant is they think we're rich and they think we're like living this great, great, great life. Oh, you're so lucky in America. But now they see, the world is seeing the abject police brutality, the systematic racism and all of that. Now, how do you give us an opinion on how you see this, what's happening now in these United States against Black America?
You see, I have the privilege of looking at it from the prism of both the African viewpoint as well as the American viewpoint. I can tell you it is your basic standard Black issue. While they may have, it's a different form of lynching, basically they lynched George Floyd. They are on our necks. And I have to say, when you see the book I put on there, Get Off My Neck, I Can't Breathe, Get Off My Neck. They are on our necks. They have been on our necks. This is a Black person's issue. This is a Black issue. Yes, in Minneapolis, it was on the streets of Minneapolis with a policeman with physically having his neck on George Floyd. They are on our necks at every level. If you look at what is being done to Black people in this country, it's because simply they're Black. If you look at what's being done to Africans on the continent, the colonizers having never have left, continuing to exploit and take advantage of the Africans, is because we are Black. What they can do in Africa, they will not do to each other in Europe. I often say, in our case in Africa, you have somebody in your house eating your food that you would have prepared for them, and then after that you go under the table and you wait for them to drop off a few crumbs. And while you're under the table, they want to have a diplomatic conversation with you. How? You are under the table. You're waiting for them to drop off crumbs. They say, let's have a diplomatic conversation. No, until we are all on the table. When one day we meet at your table, tomorrow we meet at my table. Until we are at that level, there is no diplomatic conversation here. You have the liberty to have a diplomatic conversation with fellow European countries because you are equal. You view yourselves as equal. But when you come to Africa, you don't view us as equal. And you give us these trade policies that are so unfair, almost criminal sometimes, and you see nothing wrong with it because you are dealing with Black people, because we're supposed to be glad that the white man is coming to talk to us. We're supposed to be grateful that they're giving us these peanuts. It's the same disrespect. When that policeman was kneeling on George, he did not see an equal human being. He saw a subhuman. That's why it never bothered him. The issue of George Floyd, the issue of the systematic lynching in a different format that is going on, it is an issue of Black people. Let's understand it for what it is, because it's taking different shapes, it's coming in dressed in different clothes, but at the end of the day, it culminates to the continuous suffering of Black people, no matter where you find us. It culminates to a disrespected race, wherever you find us around the globe. It summarizes what has been going on for centuries since the white man, 600 years ago, first set foot on our beloved continent of Africa. This is squarely a Black issue. Let's look at it for what it is and fight it viciously from every angle. It is racism that has no place on earth, plain and simple, no matter where you encounter it. So whether it is happening in the United States, it's happening in Africa, in the Caribbean, in South America, it is abuse and mistreatment of Black people. It is abuse and treatment of Black people as subhuman. It has got to end. And we Black people must understand one thing. Those who set out to dehumanize us, naturally, you don't expect them to change. They're simply being bullies, guys. Let's call it what it is. A bully will continue to bully you as long as you don't stand up and say, stop it, it's over. That's all we got to do as Black people. We are coming from the point of righteousness. We are the victims. And all we have to do is stand up. How long are they going to continue to just burn us? They just keep burning us with the hundred. They just keep burning us. And we keep saying, ouch, and we keep saying, ouch. How long are we going to continue keeping on saying, ouch, before we say, stop it? That is what is needed. We must stand up. We must let the world know that what they have been subjecting Black people to, the game is up. They need to stop it. Enough is enough.
All right. So listen, it's interesting. I'm a deeply reflective man on a spiritual level. And I was, thinking about, you're finding more and more people showing their racism on social media and video. And then the people come out and they apologize, and it's supposed to be like just over. Right. And so I was watching the argument about the brother who the white lady called the police on him in Central Park, and he doesn't want to participate in he doesn't want to testify against her because he feels like, hey, her life has been ruined already, and whatever he was saying, he's turning the other cheek, in other words. Okay. And I was just kind of contemplating on that. And I see, and watching all of the arguments going across social media about this brother and his choice to just kind of remove himself from the controversy. But I say, you know what? They really look at us as the terms I've heard over time is children of a lesser God. There are some people who even believe that our Black skin is the curse of Cain, is the curse of Ham. It's like really, really deep seated, the hatred for us. And you are absolutely right. We've got to take matters into our own hands and, first of all, demand it to stop, but build our own with the continent. And if you choose to stay here in America, yes, here in America too, but we have to have these linkages with the African continent. That's just what I have to say. Let me ask you.
But you got a point right there, my brother. Let me just, you've actually said something very profound, whether you realize it or not. There are only 15 million Jews, diaspora Jews in the world, and they own this little bitty country of Israel. Many of them may never set foot on Israel, on the land of Israel. But they know that Israel is home and that they can go to Israel wherever they want. All other races in this country, Chinese American, German American, Italian American, Irish American, they know that Germany is home, Italy is home. They can trace themselves to the villages where they come from in their countries. Why has that not been awarded to African Americans? Now that one falls squarely on the laps of the Africans. African Union should have done something about the children of Africa in the diaspora. It is anchoring, it is stabilizing, and every human being on earth must know where they come from. I have never imagined living in this world and not knowing where I come from, not knowing where my name comes from. To know that your history is a history of pain and can only be traced to the last slave master, or rather slaver. How can that be allowed? And that is the situation African Americans find themselves with no hope. I know where I come from. I can take my name. With my name, you can trace me to my village in Zimbabwe where I come from. Why can't that be done for African Americans? We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to make sure the children of Africa, just like other people in the United States, Black Americans must know where they come from. And we are on a mission as ADGI. We're going to see to it that the children of Africa are able to go back home and say, this is where I come from. We're not saying go home to Africa because somebody is chasing you out of the United States. Absolutely not. You belong here. But you also need to know that this is my other home and I can go there if I want to. That needs to be done, and we're going to see to it that it is done. Way past due, 400 years is too long. So yes, you're right. It needs to be done.
That's a powerful point. I took the DNA test. I got it as a Christmas present a couple of years ago, and I had been organizing these trips. We go primarily to South Africa for the Cape Town Jazz Festivals. I take groups over there, and as I've gotten as I began to do that, I began to have relationships all over the continent. I can't wait to get over to Senegal. I can't wait to go over to Kenya. I can't wait. I have friends over there, now through my connections. But when I found out that I was from Cameroon, I mean, it really, really touched my heart. Now I'll tell the story. I have a friend, Charles and Pamela Asobo Anchang. They are here in the United States. They're from Cameroon. I was so happy and proud that I was from Cameroon. And I went, Brother Charles, I'm from Cameroon.
Are you from Bamileke tribe?
That's what he asked me. And I did not know. He said, well, what are you? And I said, well, I don't know. So, we have some work to do.
You should take another DNA test. If you go with African ancestry DNA, they will actually tell you your tribe, because she's the only one who's been doing it long enough, and she has the largest numbers for you to be able to actually tell you what tribe in Cameroon you're from. I can pretty sure tell you that you're probably Bamileke, because that's where the majority are coming from. But I think you should check it out. It would be good to know. I'll tell you why it's important to know. You can actually now trace the history of the Bamileke people. And I think you should take it a step further to make sure you're really home. Pick up also your Bamileke name. You can sit down and begin to look at the history of the Bamileke people. You will be amazed. Similarities that you're going to see from those tribes and some of the people in your own families. It is refreshing. You can sit down with your children and your grandchildren and talk about where we come from and our tribe, the Bamileke people. I'm pretty sure you're a Bamileke. Let me know what you turn out to be.
I will. And you know what? I am really, I want to know the name of that person who made it across the Middle Passage. I really wish I could find out who that was, what type of person they were, and the fortitude that they must have had to survive that horrible experience from Mother Africa all the way to these shores. And, I wish that they could just look in the future and see me and see that they're hopes and dreams.
I have some good news to share with African Americans, and every time I say this, my fellow continental Africans, they laugh at me. But you got to understand that when the slavers took Africans out of the continent, they chose the ones they felt were the fittest, the ones they felt would make this horrendous journey across the Atlantic. And even after picking the fittest out of Africa, the brightest and the fittest, even 50% of those still perished. So the ones who made it to the Americas, they are truly the best of the best Africa had. So the African Americans, to you, I say, you are descendants of the best Africa had. You are descendants of some of the most incredible survivors. So for that, you should be proud, because you are a descendant of creme de la creme. You must remember that. I just wanted to make sure African Americans know that.
All right, so Ambassador, you got me convinced. I want to create some business opportunities, strengthen my linkages to the continent of Africa. Tell me about how can a business person or those who are interested in creating linkages with Mother Africa, how do we go about that? Where do we start?
That's what African Diaspora Development Institute is about. AURADDI.org. You can go sign up. But what we are doing now, if it were not for COVID, we already have plans to go to 8 African countries where we are going to be looking at having the first right of refusal of all the projects that are within the country. And so ADDI is simply going to be opening doors and presenting those opportunities to the diaspora. COVID has just really slowed us down, but we are hoping to start back up in October if we're able to travel. Hopefully we can do at least 3 or 4 countries before the end of the year, and we're going to hit next year with a bang if COVID would allow us. We are going to be opening ADDI offices in each country. When we open the country, we are going to have, starting each office with 3 employees. One has to be African American, 1 continental African from that particular country as a diaspora, and then also 1 local person. And as we add more people, that's the complement that we are going to have, because the ADDI office is going to be truly representative of the African diaspora. So from African American, the next one will be Caribbean, the next one will be South American. But we'll make sure that we continue to be as representative of the African diaspora as possible. This team, through this office, and we're also going to be having people directly assigned to ADDI who report directly to the president, will see to it that the diaspora businesses that come to invest in that particular country, they don't run into the red tape that normally businesses are running into. And also we want to make sure that diaspora businesses are actually made aware of the opportunities that arise. Quite often we are not in the know. We are only hearing that an airport is being opened in this particular country. I've challenged as many heads of states as I could to say, we have some of the best airport builders in the United States and their diaspora. And I use an example of the Atlanta airport. They are shocked that Atlanta airport was built by 50% black companies and continues to be run by 50% black companies. We have people with expertise to build railway lines, to build highways, to get involved in high-tech agricultural projects, power production and all that. So they need to know that we have everything in the diaspora. Our problem has just been they didn't know how to reach us. So yes, through ADDI, we are going to be able to make those opportunities available. These are huge opportunities which are going to call for collaboration. So I hope that through ADDI, when you sign up, pretty soon, once we go to the first country, when we come back, we're going to post the opportunities of that country. As we open each country, we're going to post the opportunities from that country. Hopefully, the children of Africa can begin to engage and create the necessary collaborations which are needed to build the Africa we want.
Let's circle back to something you mentioned. I mean, we notice now that China is really heavy across the continent, and you were talking about our reluctance to buy from one another, and we've got to stop that. And there's an old saying that says the white man's ice is colder. And I was in Africa one time. I think I was in Zambia, and on the little resort we were staying on. Walk by and the guy, I'm looking for some, souvenirs to bring home, and the brother selling says, this is made in China. He really felt like this was like the best thing ever. And it really made me mad because I'm like, dude, I'm looking for something from Africa. I don't want no China stuff, and it was really, but China is really kind of infiltrated and taken over in Africa. What's your feeling about that, and why is it? Because somebody told me it's because they came in with infrastructure as opposed to military and guns. No, what do you think about that?
No, my brother, let's be serious here. It's because we are not there, okay? It's just that simple. If you were there with your expertise, you would be getting the contract. The heads of states honestly don't know how to reach us. It's just that simple. I was talking to a sister of mine. She's from one African country, and the president had just given 3 contracts of 20 megawatts of power to the Chinese. And she called me very upset and said, why is the president doing this? And I said, okay, my sister, I tell you what, if you tell me you have a group of diaspora who are ready to take even one of those 200 megawatts of power, I will call the president and see if he can give it to the diaspora. And that's when the conversation ended. I said, you cannot sit here over 10,000 miles away and shoot complaints about Chinese who are getting ready to bring electricity to 75-year-old grandmother who has never had electricity all her life. They're getting ready to bring water to a grandmother who has never had running water. They're getting ready to bring a paved road to a village that has had problems with mud and flooding. You want to sit here and say you don't want the village, you don't want the grandmother to have all those improvements in her quality of life simply because you don't want the Chinese to do it. That's ridiculous. If you are ready to go and take that contract, then and only then are you prepared or are you in a position to complain. Until you are ready to go and fill that contract, for now, you need to shut up. And that's what's needed. So the reason the Chinese are coming, they're filling a void that we African diaspora, with our know-how, with our financial expertise, should be filling. But we're too lazy, we are too greedy, we are too selfish to do the right thing, which is unite. So until we are prepared to unite and fill that void, we need to shut up.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, I tell you, that's really something you have really enlightened us quite a bit here. We're almost at the end of our time. Let me ask you, we can get that book, Africa 101, The Wake Up Call. It's quite the wake up call. I hope so for everybody, eh? And Your Excellency, I would love for you to come back from time to time here on Coffee Conversations with Greg J. This is a platform you could always count on to speak to the people. We're out here in the Los Angeles area, specifically Long Beach, California. A lot of people here from around. There's a brother online I want to acknowledge and share with you, Brother Uchenna. I'm putting his comment on there. Uchenna Nworgu has an organization called African Focus. And what they do is they are, very strong with building this bridge with overturning these myths that we mentioned earlier between Africans and African Americans. And there's a phenomenal program whereby African families who live here actually adopt African Americans, and we take on that. They give us a name, and they take on, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And at the end of the whole thing is a ginormous ceremony here at one of the larger hotels here in the Los Angeles area. And he's invited kings to give blessing, kings from the continent to come and give blessings. It's overwhelming, very, very emotional. But Brother Uchenna is a good friend of mine, and you should know him and link up with him, because he's been doing the work for a very long time and try to make sure that we as African Americans know about our brothers and sisters on the continent and vice versa. All right.
Absolutely. We would love to meet him. I think that's a wonderful, exciting program. I think activities like that, they just really give me the goosebumps, and we need to do more of that.
Yes.
Thank you, my brother, for all you're doing. I actually look forward to talking to you.
All right. I want to share, before we get out of here, I want to talk about can we talk about the bank? Tell the people, you wanted to, when you were building a infrastructure of economics for this exchange of African and African Americans, and you needed to get, people of substance, millionaires, to participate in this and purchase gold. Okay. Yeah. So talk about that for the people, so we can just say you mean business right here. This is really phenomenal.
Let me tell you, this is, sometimes I am shocked at, and I shouldn't be shocked, but I wake up and I just find myself shaking my head to say, we are the richest people on earth. I look at people that I know in Africa. They are practically living in gold. Their homes are built in land that is nothing but gold. I know a city where I come from. When the people are paving the streets, they are digging gold. It is that superficial. That's happening in Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, DRC, Cameroon, you name it. And yet we are the poorest. Then when you said, the more I have lived in this country and I've encountered with people and finance people, and I began to see Americans, Europeans go to Africa poor, and they come back, before you know it, they're millionaires, multimillionaires, billionaires of Africa's wealth. And the number one asset they're using to become billionaires was gold. Then I sat down with one guy and I was trying to find out, how is this done? And I've been doing it for quite a while now. And I found out what they do. They take gold from Africa and they purchase it at the London Metal Exchange rate, which is whatever the going rate is. Like right now, it is 55, 60,000 a kilo. And they'll buy as simple as 2,000 kilograms. 2,000 kilograms, let's say roughly for simplicity's sake, is $100 million. They deposit it in a vault in Europe, and they get a standby letter of credit. And that standby letter of credit can be monetized over 40 weeks for up to 10 times the value of the 100 million. So if they were to get the maximum, in 10 months, they can convert the 100 million to $1 billion. Are you with me? With 2,000 kilograms of gold. I can take you to a village right now that's sitting on hundreds of thousands of gold. So I sat down and I started looking and talking to the finance people in my board and asking, I say, what would it take for us to get involved in such a program? I said, Ambassador, we need to buy a bank in Europe. So those are the conversations that are going on, because I know we have children of Africa with means, children of Africa who have the ability to do things like that. I've found that even more, that if the bank was to be in Switzerland, you can even multiply your returns by even a larger amount. These are all opportunities that are not made available to us, information that we are not generally told. I had one white guy, he was after this George Floyd situation. He said, I read your bio and I felt that you are the person I've been looking for. And he was preaching to the choir. I'd already had the information, but he said, let me help you help your people. He said, I know how Africa can change very easily by using Africa's own minerals, and it can be done in a very easy way. He laid out a plan. I wish I could discuss it. I'm not at liberty to discuss those kind of things. I'm not a finance person, but it is as clear as night and day. It can be that easy that we can build Africa through and through. African Union has said we only need 100 billion a year for the next 10 years to completely build out Africa's infrastructure. And that 100 billion a year, we can raise it very easily with Africa's minerals in a very short order. And that's the conversation I'm having with people who know money, people who know how to manage this. And I'm saying we have our own children in the diaspora who are millionaires, who have disposable cash. If they can buy 2,000 kilograms of gold, I'd be happy to send them to this guy and they can be introduced to this program, and we can begin the journey of building our Africa our way.
All right, there you have it there. Africa 101. Get your chips ready. Get them up. Get them up. Let's go. Let's build these bridges between Africa and African American. It is essential, especially at such a time as this. Her book is Africa 101, The Wake-Up Call. We're certainly awake now, aren't we? We really have to make these moves and have to stand up for our people all over the world, the diaspora. This is what it's all about. Don't just be about us here. Yes, we got to take care of home, but at the same time, you know that there's brothers and sisters under similar conditions all over the world, and I think a united diaspora is a very strong one. Thank you so much, Ambassador Arikana Chihombori. Am I saying it right? Am I saying your name right?
You are saying it right. Actually,
all right.
You're doing extremely well. You forgot the Quao. That's the one most people struggle with. I want to thank you too, my brother, for having me and for all the great work that you have done over the years. Let me end by reminding everybody, Africa101.org. You can reserve your hard copy. By the way, the hard copy is interactive. There is a barcode at the end of every chapter where you can scan and you get to listen to me. You can watch a video of me talking about the chapter, why I wrote it, and what I hope you can get out of it. There's introduction. Again, another video of me talking about what I hope you'll get out of the book. And at the end of the chapter, there's also a summary of what I hope you have accomplished. And hopefully that, and when it's all said and done, that you have woken up with the information that you now have. So our Africa101.org, but also more importantly, go over to our ADDI, OUR ADDI. ADDI stands for African Diaspora Development Institute. So our ADDI.org. We really need for you to stand up. We want you to sign up. We want to know who you are as a professional. We want to know who you are as a company. So when these contracts are coming, we want to be able to reach you. So please stand up and be counted, because your name, your voice does matter.
All right, y'all. We've got that up on our screen, and we'll have it at beachcityradio.com and all of our Facebook conversations, our Facebook platforms. Thank you all so much. And I just want to, Molly Bell is a woman warrior here in our local community. She's saying to you, Ambassador, be safe, be careful, and be sure to know that we are praying for you. Much love, Africa for the African. Prayer warriors, keep fasting, keep praying. The struggle continues, and always to God be the glory. There you go. Thank you so much for listening there, Molly Bell. And Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. We're here for you, and I'll be talking to you really, really soon. And to the Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Thank you all so much. It's been great. I'm striving to bring you, the knowledge. We've had quite a few. Actually, every episode has been really of substance, really hitting our goal of being culturally relevant. And we just love you guys for following, and thank you for supporting us there. Somebody asked me if that was Kalimba Song coffee I was sipping on. It most certainly was. And Kalimba Song coffee, we import that one farmer direct from the mountains of Cameroon, West Africa. So y'all get that, KalimbaSongCoffeeCompany.com. Love one another, y'all. Love one another. Love one another. Peace and blessings.
Thank you.